Okay, well today we're going to make our famous Boilermaker chili. Let me talk through some of the ingredients first. What you need basically is onions, peppers, any kind of peppers. It could be red peppers, green peppers that we have here, Italian green peppers. If you want to use hot peppers, that's great. We have two different types of tomatoes. We got crushed tomatoes as well as a diced tomato with green chilies already in it. We've got two different types of beans. One is going to be chili beans. It's basically a pinto bean in chili sauce, and then to give it a little bit of different color, some black beans as well. Then the only other things we're going to need today are going to be some olive oil. We're going to also have some lean ground beef. We're going to have some beer, some for the chili, some for the cook. Just make sure we get it in the right order. We have some sugar and we're going to use some apple cider vinegar. You can use any type of vinegar, but it'll cut down on the acidity of the actual tomatoes itself. Then all we're going to need is a little bit of black pepper, chili powder, and salt, and we're ready to go. Let's start with the peppers. Let me show you the best way and the easiest way to cut one of these peppers. Use the biggest knife you can find, the big butcher knives. Lop off the top, no big deal. Lop off the bottom, and then you want to find one of these ribs. You want to cut right before the rib. And then just take your knife, and you're going to run it all the way around the ribs, and you're going to cut out all the seeds, you're going to cut out all the ribs. You're going to try to make sure that you don't cut out your fingers, and what you have is a very nice clean pepper that you can cut up. Now what I like to do with my chili, I like the different vegetables inside, the onions, the green peppers, to be a little chunky. So I'm going to cut it in half, and then you're just going to cut small slices. Make sure you keep your fingers away. You can put the kind of the C cup on it, so make sure you don't chop your fingers. And then I'm going to give it a real coarse chop. Turn it to the side, and let's just make sure we cut it, right? Big chunky pieces. Same thing, cut them in chunks. Making sure you don't cut your fingers off, always a good sign.
Unless you want the extra red sauce.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can just cut these, you know, why waste it? Cut it up, you got more stuff to throw in. And then you can just pop the center right out. And once again, just cut it in nice little slices, and you got a little bit more chili, or a little more green peppers for the chili. Throw in a bowl, keep it off to the side, because what we're going to do in a few minutes is we're going to sweat these, the peppers along with the onions in our pot right before we put in our ground beef. Now we're going to do the onion. Cut off the ends. And then what you want to do is just cut it in half. All right, that's going to give you a nice base so it's not bouncing all over when you're trying to cut it. And I just take one of the layers, peel it right off. You're not going to waste a whole lot of the onion anyway. All right, makes it easier to peel it together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it into 3 pieces here. Again, it's nice and flat. I like big chunks in mine, and just right down the center. All right, big chunks for me. I like bigger chunks in my chili. I'm going to show you how to sweat the onions and the peppers in the pot. Everything's going to be made in one pot, so there's not a lot of have a lot of cleanup. Basically, it's what you see on the board and what you're going to see in the pot. So let's go over to the stove. We're going to use a fairly good-sized stock pot. This way, it doesn't spill all over the place. We want to put it on the higher burner and probably around medium heat. I want to take a little bit of olive oil, preferably olive oil, not necessarily extra virgin olive oil. Extra virgin is really better for salad, stuff like that, but the olive oil itself has a much higher burn rate, so you don't have to worry about it smoking all the time. So just regular olive oil is perfect. Maybe a tablespoon or 2. If it's 3 or 4, it's not going to hurt it one little bit. Just let that heat up for just a few seconds, and take all of the onions, go ahead and dump them in. Take the different peppers that we have, you want to pop those in as well. Make sure they get in there. Just going to do a little stir, coat it with the oil. You can see it's starting to glisten a little bit. This pot's going to fire up in a second. And what I like to do is put just a little bit of salt in. That'll help sweat it, give it a little bit of flavor. Maybe a quarter of a teaspoon is about all you really need. All right, you can hear that sizzle. And what we're going to be looking for is the onions to be a little bit translucent. You'll notice when they're cooked. You'll see. And then what's going to happen is you're going to pull off some of the flavor, and some of that flavor is actually going to impart into your chili. So we're going to build flavors here. We're going to keep building on those flavors to help the overall effect of the chili. It's been about just 2 or 3 minutes, nothing more than that, and you can see now how the onions through the smoke are much more translucent, And what's happening with the onion or the green peppers as well is they're starting to cook a little bit. They're not as hard. But remember, you're gonna put other sauce in here. It's gonna cook for probably 45 minutes to an hour. So those are gonna get nice and soft. All right. Next thing we want to do is to build on those flavors. Let's go ahead and add our ground beef. This is a very, very lean ground beef, and I'm not even going to take the other vegetables out of here. We're not going to drain off any fat because it is so lean, and you need a little bit of fat for flavor. If it were a cut that wasn't as lean, then you may want to go ahead and brown the meat separately and then drain off a good portion of the fat. But this will probably take, I don't know, maybe another 2 or 3 minutes.
Or another 2 or 3 beers, whichever one comes first.
Exactly. It's nicely brown. You can also see there's not a tremendous amount of fat, but just enough to give it some flavor. The next thing we want to add, of course, is the beer. And we're going to add most of the bottle, and I say most of the bottle, and the reason is because the cook needs some. So, you know. I want to just give that a little stir, and that'll start heating up for us for a couple seconds. And what we want to do next is we're going to go ahead and just take our crushed tomatoes. It's already opened up. We're going to pour that whole pile in. This is probably what, it's a 28 ounce can. Give that again a little stir. We're going to add our diced tomatoes with green chilies. Those we're not going to drain. We're going to put everything in, including all of the liquid. You know, that's probably about a little over a teaspoon, teaspoon and a half. That should do it. A little tiny bit of vinegar. Again, the sugar and the vinegar will help take off some of the acidity. Again, it's not rocket science. You don't have to measure it. Just probably a teaspoon or so, maybe a little bit more. We want to add a little more salt and pepper. Again, you want some flavor here, so I would think about a teaspoon at least of salt. Again, you don't have to measure. Probably about the same for the pepper, maybe about half a teaspoon, we'll say. That'll give it a little kick. That's probably about a half a teaspoon. And finally, it's chili, so we need to add a little bit of chili. And this is actually chili powder. So, again, this you're going to have to judge on your own what you want to put in, because this is what's going to make it hot or not hot. So I'm just going to shake some in. We're probably looking at about a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon there. And give it a nice stir. And what we're going to do is let it sit uncovered for, you know, just maybe half an hour, 45 minutes. Everything will get nicely heated up. Because remember, everything's already cooked. It'll give the peppers a chance to get a little bit softer as well. Now at the end, we're going to add later on, we'll show you different types of cheeses to it to thicken it up. Or if you want, and you like your chili a little thicker, some people do, some don't. I do at times. You know, maybe 3 teaspoons of cornstarch with a little bit of water to make it, you know, liquefied. Pour it in, stir it around, leave it cook for another 5 minutes. It'll be nice and thick. Anyway, that's basically how you make a great chili. It doesn't take a lot of effort, a lot of work. We probably did this whole thing, what, about 15 minutes. So
that's his story, and we're sticking to it.
There we go. So until we get to the next bottle of beer and our next part of the 6-pack, we'll see you in a bit.
All right, we got our chili bubbling there nicely. Next thing I'm going to do is show you how to make beer cheese soup.